Welcome, Venture Map Elite Community. There are a number of people in this world that I'm grateful for, but I've got a special place in my heart for the founding members of this group. There's a mix of the dozen or so folks that are in here as members. I guess we're at 20 now, getting close to 2 dozen. And some people are longtime friends and clients. Some of the people in here are family. My father is in the group. And some people are brand new. It's really interesting. In fact, there's a few people that signed up months ago, and I'm still looking forward to my initial one-on-one with them. There's others that I would say genuinely have it, it constitutes a new friendship. I'm blessed. I feel so blessed to have built the relationships that I have through this group, and the investment that's been made by each and every one of you in the ways that you've made it financially, energetically, with your time, with your intellect. And otherwise, it is one of the most rewarding, if not honestly, if not the most rewarding thing I've experienced in my career. Someone asked me the other day, I was checking out at the grocery store, and someone says, "Oh, what are you doing anything for Memorial Day, the Memorial Day holiday weekend?" I said, "Just keeping it low key, hanging out with family." He's, "Oh, are you off on Monday? Do you have off on Monday?" And I said, "That's a great question." And he laughed. He's like, "Yeah, you got a couple days to figure it out, to find out whether or not you're working." So I thought it'd be funny to tell him a joke. I've shared this joke a lot over the years. Sometimes when you work for yourself, it feels like being employed by a maniac, by a madman. When your boss is the one that you see in the mirror, sometimes that person can be really difficult to work for. And we've talked about that split before, where we have executive responsibilities. There's executive faculties. We have to determine the way forward for the organization, for our career, for how we allocate and invest our inherently constrained resources. But then there's also the tactical side, the operational side, the side that it's the doing of the things. That's where the money is made. That's where the reps are completed. That's the practice part. It's the application on the other side of theory. Sun Tzu, of course, he says, strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. I love that. I absolutely love that saying because it echoes and harmonizes. I should say, John Lewis Gaddis echoes and harmonizes with Sun Tzu, who, of course, codified that the sweet little saying many hundreds of generations prior. John Lewis Gaddis, a Yale professor, says in his book On Grand Strategy that great strategy is at the intersection of aspirations and capabilities. Much like the hallmark of a great mind is defined by one with the ability to hold two opposing ideas simultaneously while maintaining effective function. So too, great strategists have the unique ability to walk the middle way, to maintain a position intersecting their aspirations and their capabilities. Eyes to the sky without boots leaving the ground. King Xerxes, many thousands of years ago, many hundreds of years ago, perhaps, it was BC. Yeah, several thousand years ago. Now I got to verify. Was standing on the shores of the Hellespont Xerxes crossing the Hellespont. 480 BC. So that was 2000, almost 2,500 years ago. And as the legend goes, Xerxes has a barge bridge assembled before him. This is actually the second barge bridge assembled. The first one was reportedly wiped out by inclement weather. And the Hellespont is a narrow strait that connected Asia and Europe. And his uncle and chief advisor shared with him before departing. He says it probably one of the very few people that could speak handedly to Xerxes, right? This is the God King, quote unquote. And he says, you should really think twice about going because it's not the Greeks that are going to defeat you. It's the elements. There's no river wide enough for your army to drink from. There's insufficient food. Your logistics and supply line will be stretched to the breaking point. It's incredibly fragile. Being a capabilities-driven individual, Artabanus was very concerned with the constraints and the real-world pragmatic capability set afforded to them, though vast. Xerxes responded by saying, if you worry, and essentially paraphrasing, if you worry about everything, you'll accomplish nothing. Fortune favors the bold. Step aside, nerd. Stay at the palace and go back to bean counting. So he left Artabanus and embarked on what would become an invasion that countless history books would reflect on and seek to pull lessons from. Of course, in the end, it was predominantly the environment that decimated Xerxes' Persian forces. The seas all but destroyed the majority of his fleet, and the brittle, highly vulnerable supply lines were, and the lack of available resources and to sufficiently supply the armies, the strained logistics was among the chief reasons for their ultimate defeat and subsequent retreat and disgrace, right? Xerxes was all vision, all aspiration. Artabanus was all capabilities, all operations, all pragmatism. As founders, we have the incredibly challenging position of spanning those two spheres, vision and execution, theory and practice. It's incredibly difficult. It's incredibly difficult. But for those who can do it well for long enough, to finalize the historical metaphor, glory awaits. All jokes aside, it is possible to bridge strategy and execution. It's more possible now than ever before. In the economic game called free enterprise, capitalist economy, small business, entrepreneurship, we solve problems at a profit. My aspiration with VentureMap is to have a sufficiently capable model to manage small business assets, to effectively manage and scale a portfolio of small businesses, and incrementally developing this in a manner that is coupled, hand in glove, dovetailed with real world application. And more than that, it stands on its own legs. much like a baby giraffe has all of whatever it is, 13 minutes or less, 13 seconds maybe, to stand on its own legs after birth, lest it get taken down by gangs of ravenous hyenas. So too must venture map withstand the perilous economic reality it finds itself within as a bootstrapped solopreneur small business. So again, I say I'm grateful for the wonderful, truly wonderful people of the Venture Map Elite community. The level of trust that has been extended is such a privilege. I am greatly honored by that, greatly honored. And it's something I take so seriously. I spent a, a great deal of time contemplating how I can continue to be an asset in your portfolio, how our work together can drive real world return, how it can be high yield for you as an owner, an operator. There's a lot more to come, and it's a bit daunting, I'll say, in truth. It is a bit daunting. I was at the tail end of producing a full venture map for close to a dozen people in quarter 1, having gained insight and got clear signal that the growth plan area, this planning horizon area, out of all the people we produced for, this was the thing that was the highest value, highest perceived value, that garnered the highest level of user engagement. So I consolidated the scope of work for Venture Map Elite, partly in truth, being vulnerable, because my creative side, the creative in me, the artist in me, was suffering withering rebukes against what, frankly, was a labor of love to bring to life the deliverable stacks, the precursor deliverable stacks, dozens and dozens of deliverables, bespoke, custom produced prior to the growth plan, according to the logic and an order of operations for the venture map. Just from a individual, subjective, ego-driven, creative place, it was taken as a withering rebuke against the work to have it unceremoniously cast aside. And the opposite of love, as they say, is hate. It's indifference. So the level of indifference that all of the work encounter, basically this stuff, the partition in me as a founder and an entrepreneur that has that emotional, human, artistic exploit dreamer had to go through somewhat of a grieving process, as dramatic as that may sound. Yet the anthropologist in me, the architect, the capitalist, the founder, was elated at the signal, working in what frankly felt a lot like and objectively could be classified as near obscurity for half a decade, for literally 5 years, despite some relatively high profile engagements that were quite lucrative, to get to a place where we have a scalable model and a productized framework to potentially impact hundreds, thousands, a million small business owners, Main Street entrepreneurs. That's a fire in my heart that burns very deeply. So having that split where it's okay, my original hypothesis was partially validated that if we cast a wide enough net, we will gain very high quality learnings, a heat map with statistically significant data of which we can derive the highest leverage elements, the highest leverage capability set of this enterprise, of this array of capabilities that we're assembling. And we found that with the growth plan. So we've adjusted, we've maneuvered, we've simplified, we've honed in, and that's something I'm really proud of. Really proud of that. Dialing in the core infrastructure of this, something that I'm really focused on. And I was speaking with someone who I do consider a friend now, one of the very first members of this community. I like to tell my wife, Jasmine, I said, we've got a lot of clients, but few members. And I'm not entirely sure I even know the difference, but in a way that I can describe, but I know how it feels. And this person told me when I was thanking them for helping us reach a level of insight, a plane of clarity on what needs to be done. And this person says, that's so great. I'm happy. I hope it really helps follow on clients, follow on members. And I said, me too. I know that for a fact that it will. It already is. But it's going to help you. And that's something I'm pretty excited about. From the perspective of a COO, from the perspective of an integrator, you're part of the business. You're second in command, you're the right-hand man. So it's second nature to take a longer view of the work. It's not a marketing campaign that we're worried about alone. It's not a hiring round or an SOP project. It's how do all of the initiatives we have ongoing support the vision we have for this company? How do we increase the total operations efficiency of the company? How do we increase the revenue we're generating? How do we extend the lifetime value of our customers, improve the customer acquisition costs, drive advocacy from both our employees and our customers? It's taking the longer view. And it's been my ambition from the beginning to build that relationship with more business owners. The self-serving reason is because it's something I'm candid about. I like to say, as a service provider, if you have one client and you lose one client, you have 0 clients. Even if that client is paying quite well, the risk of that revenue is quite high. If you have 10 clients and you lose one client, you have 9 clients left. The risk of the revenue combined is quite lower because it's diversified. So that is an aspect of my drive as an individual to break from the standpoint of a COO. It's incredibly difficult to effectively run alongside of a CEO of even one company, much less doing it from a legacy standpoint, doing fractional integration, fractional COO work for multiple companies. Incredibly difficult. Not in the least of which because you have to be really good at choosing the right scope of work. If you don't have the discernment and the judgment and the insight and the powers of communication and structure and organization to set all of that, it is a recipe for disaster. Having gone through a lot of that learning and knowing that the AI COO is the holy grail of this type of work. Nobody wants a part-time COO. Nobody wants somebody who's going to be working for them 5 hours a week, even if they're amazing. Frankly, nobody wants someone who's only going to work for them 20 hours a week. Every business owner, myself included, I would love to have a right-hand man, right-hand person, second in command, who's razor sharp, lightning quick, has badass experience, expertise, a champion for the culture, an advocate for the customer, for the people in our company, our team, who has a super human understanding of what we are doing, who we are, why we exist, where we're going, how we're going to do it, who we're going to do it with, the game we're playing, the arena we're playing it in, market conditions, industry forces, macroeconomic climate, key trends, emerging technology, consumer demand, all that stuff, and just executes like a machine. That would be great. That would be fantastic. That kind of person is going to cost you 40,000 a month, 20,000 a month, 50,000 a month. That is not cheap. Frankly, that is a team of people. That's teams of people with extremely powerful technology at their disposal. Frankly, it's from a legacy standpoint, it doesn't exist. Finding that quality of talent and enabling sufficiently, it is impossible for small businesses to get that. It's impossible. It's out of their reach. They're not resourced sufficiently. And what's more, their own ego, the founder, the CEO, the owner, the operator, their own ego is oftentimes the limiting factor to that scale. Even if you were well capitalized and you were able to bring in unbelievable talent, unbelievable technology, the cultural climate, that's a big piece. I can speak from experience where money is not really the most important thing to the engagement. It's the workplace culture, it's the environment. At a certain point, I don't want to be miserable every day. And people at that echelon of that high performance, high caliber, world class talent, especially when sufficiently experienced, they don't have the concern and their ability to put food on the table, to pay the bills. Of course, economics is a reality. Culture is a big piece of that. It's a constraining factor. So, as I say, my ego, the fragile ego was hit so heavily. Oh, it was painful. How could they not love the culture deck? How could they not even look at it? How could they not even look at their own business model? How could they not even look at their own environment model? It's a briefing video. I'm telling myself, it's 3 minutes long. It's custom branded. It's colloquial. It's not overly verbose and riddled with technical jargon, right? It's colloquial. The man in the sea, right? Tearing his garments, bearing his soul against the storm. That artist in me. It's just like, why? No. How can this be? And having been blessed by God with a semblance of self-awareness and a natural inclination towards contemplation and more of an observational characteristic, let that marinate and did that interior observation, did that reflection. And for many years, having my first stint in the workforce, being in the military, understand and have, I believe, a very mature ability to sever or segment or compartmentalize various aspects of life. So I am well aware of the necessity that comes with passion projects. You have to pour your heart, your soul, You have to bear that part of your creative spirit. And much like working acrylic on canvas, there's a bringing forth, a transmutation. There is a spiritual dynamic to it that can only be expressed through the work itself. Yet as an entrepreneur and a founder, there is a very pragmatic, economic reality underpinning it, an executive faculty. That's, in a way, cold-blooded. This scoreboard is pretty easy to keep track of in business. And in a for-profit business, it's one of the, if not the highest thing to track is revenue and profit margin. So the balance between those things, is it journey? I think the idea of a tight wire is balance on a tight wire isn't right. You're balancing between these two fields, these two domains. And I've been illuminating that this whole time. Aspirations, capabilities, strategy, tactics. But it's not a tight wire. That's too easy. It's like land navigation. And for those of you who've never done any land navigation before, it's not really a pleasant experience. This guy here, Buddy, a Marine in training, looking through the viewfinder on a compass, he's doing something called shooting an azimuth. And in the olden days, before Google Maps, we had to use like actual maps. This guy's here got a laminated map. And out in these sorts of environments, it's not exactly clear how to navigate it from point A to point B. You can see in this picture, there's a hill pretty easily apparent. There's shifting terrain. It's blocked views. I mean, it's rough. Point is, you have to consistently reshoot your azimuth as you go around obstacles, as you navigate the terrain. And I feel like that is the a, a good analogy for the lived experience founder. It's a road that is less traveled, and it is a active practice to navigate the complexities of the business terrain. So our work with VentureMap is in one way to help founders as they navigate that terrain. And the the gratitude I have in my heart now, having gotten through the grieving process and being on the other side and seeing it now, even from that personal place, realizing something I've talked about before in a more professional way is what we used to be constrained by was production. It would take weeks to produce a set of deliverables. Weeks. Like to do just a few deliverables. Now you can have hundreds, a couple of days. Frankly, a lot of them are better quality than they used to be when done by hand. The constraints over production have been lifted and thrust hundreds of times beyond what we could have ever conceived possible several years ago. So the pendulum has swung now to the other side. We're not dealing with constraints on production. We're dealing with constraints, people, the ability to take information in, field that through their experience, expertise, and vision of the future, and elicit input and feedback from them. High quality input with a high degree of specificity. That is tough. Structuring relevant, maximally effective viewports into the business terrain, to help them navigate it, to help them take the step forward they need to take in the direction they need to take it, to move from point A to point B, from current state to target state. That is tough. Our viewport technology is rudimentary. That's what I would tell a group of stakeholders and investors. Putting a colloquial spin on the vocabulary, I would say we basically have moved from selling everything inside of Mira, inside of the blueprint layer, to falling pretty tight into the camp of, pretty firmly into the camp of presentations. We are Gamma advocates. I think Gamma is a fantastic tool. It aligns with a lot of our values, a lot of the principles we uphold with asynchronous visual collaboration. And we found that sending a Gamma deck through with specific information or a specific deliverable, especially if it's recorded with a voiceover, like a 3 to 5 minute video, and then they can also access the deck, is a marginal improvement. It's a disappointing improvement. We hoped it would be just a dynamic tenfold increase to the amount of agency displayed by our end users, but it's not. It is a marginal increase in terms of effectiveness and getting stakeholders or end users to review produced collateral that they've paid for and approve the commission of. So it's a marginal increase for them to review it, to actually just sit down and view this. And then in terms of them, of eliciting, triggering, of catalyzing feedback, like them to actually spit out data back into the system. From, if we did a broad stroke over the course of time, we have made improvements, though in the same vein we have disappointing results across the board. We have a long way to go, I should say, from a strengths-based, future-focused growth mindset place. We have a lot of opportunity to improve. So we've been investing in our research and development into increasing our capability set in the viewport technology space. That's to say, upskilling and focusing on improving our overall knowledge within the disciplines of the principles of game design, human computer interaction, user interface design, and some additional adjacent fields, storytelling, experience design, these sorts of things, behavioral psychology, to name a few. These disciplines, first three being primary, essentially gamification, which is important. I think it's more important now than ever before because HCI, or human computer interaction, and user interface design are very important. We're effectively interfacing human beings with a system, and the viewport, the interface, needs to be optimized. Right? We can't just send them a Google Doc slapped together. It has to. We are competing with TikTok, with YouTube, with news, with text and Slack and calls and Zooms. We are competing with that. We're competing for attention. And the competition is fierce, even if people are paying for it. If we are in the old model and I'm charging you $10,000 a month and I send you something, there's so much pain associated with the departure of that cash every month. You're going to view it. So you're letting go of $100 a month. So what if it gets buried in the emails? You have bigger fish to fry. So we are playing this game right now, even at the $1,000 a month tier, where we're supporting the task execution. We're playing this game where we are searching, we are hunting for an unlock, because it's too easy to go back to default and say, okay, we'll just do high ticket sales. Because it would be, frankly, it would be giving up on a lot of the vision that's in place and the potential that I think what we're building has. The platform for self-optimizing enterprises, the capability set that will enable the wise stewardship of those self-improving smart businesses. We want to be able to deliver that capability set to other founders who are values aligned, who are purpose driven, or servant leaders. Those are the people that I believe merit the greatest advantage in the era that we're entering into, the AI era. So our efforts, my efforts, have been to skate to where that puck is going, to build the infrastructure that not just blueprints out a holistic depiction of an entire business, not just structures a data lake filled with high quality, segmented, proprietary intellectual property for each and every client, a series of repositories or knowledge bases that connect to AI models in order to have a self-optimizing, recursive, self-improving business. It has to inherently be aware of itself, its environment, and how to move through time in order to accomplish its goals, how to improve itself through a temporal axis, and how to consistently develop. It needs that data. It needs that data present, well segmented, and in a high quality manner, among other things. And it's not even just a viewport layer, the layer that interacts and interfaces with the end user, with the human element. It needs believers. It needs founders, people who from the earliest days sense that there's a bigger picture here. And very quickly, we will be overtaken by the oncoming waves called emerging technology. And we want to catch that wave. We want to ride that wave. We want to view the new technologies through an opportunistic lens. We want it to be advantageous, not detrimental. But even with all of the elements I've just discussed, success isn't guaranteed. It's only with the blessing from God over this business, a favor of the Lord on the business, on this effort, this enterprise, this expedition, that we'll find increasing levels of success. And even if we don't, if we shoot for the moon, if we shoot for the stars, but we only land on the moon, we still made it pretty far. If we only ever become a community of several dozen amazing people, which we're already close to that, and a pretty far out Miro board with gamma decks and prompts and Loom videos and funnel templates. And if we only ever become that, it's such a privilege having a hand in this effort, this endeavor. I believe with my heart, with my soul, that this is a precursor to so much more. And I want to tie up some of the loose ends as time is fading fast from this solo community call. I do look forward to the days where my wonderful community members are joining and on a regular basis. I know we'll get there soon. But something opened, one of the things that the conversational boxes I opened at the beginning was I've put through so many venture maps where I just scorched earth, brute force, produced like the whole thing in a week. Yes, we got signal. Yes, we got clarity on the highest leverage component that maintained that greatest level of perceived value for our end users. And that was important to work within the human constraints that we're now dealing with, the constraints in the people front, not the production front. where our viewport, our deliverable, the direct interface, the focused perspective that we're presenting, it can't be an ocean wide and an inch deep. It has to be very clearly, very intentionally curated. So we had to build out that foothold. And we've done that. That's the planning horizon. That's what we've called the growth plan. And there's some pretty exciting stuff I'll finish up with on the growth plan very, very soon. We still have, of course, a lot of amazing work to go on the culture. We still have automations there. That's still included. I'll tie up, so that's tying up one piece of that is when I started producing videos for the Venture Map Masterclass, I was actually really thrilled because I thought I was going to make it through my whole culture deck, full update. And I was just, it's going to be easy, right? I've done this so many times. I feel like I know I can recite the majority of the entire work breakdown structure for the Venture Map by hand, rote, or by memory, through rote memorization. As a good Marine infantryman, I have something that I actually like doing is timing myself with a blank piece of paper and drawing out the entire Venture Map specifications from memory on a large sheet of paper. I can get a pretty good level of detail in 20 minutes. So again, ego side thought I could do it. And I knew I could. Obviously, I can. But the personal aspect, God, I was brought to I was brought to my knees. I was very humbled, very humbling to go through this journey. Such a lack of appreciation for the difficulties that I would encounter at a psychological and emotional level to get this down and do it in a way that I had to put my own signature on it, that I had to share it. Oh, that was tough. And I've been bearing this sense that I still haven't produced the final lesson, the masterclass lesson on team ethos that nobody showed. And I just was like, all right, I'm out. I'm not doing this anymore. But team ethos, team journey, knowledge base, master prompt, and the actual culture deck, I haven't produced those videos yet. I haven't displayed them. And I think part of that is a recognition, a pragmatic recognition of the need to invest in dialing this in and realizing we're pretty far paced out on this, right? If anybody comes in and wants to work in their culture deck, and we do have a number of them, we've already got 4 of those deliverables staged. I've got a couple surprising delights up my sleeve, and everyone has more than enough production credits to make it all the way through. And listen, a super high quality problem would be that everyone wants to jam out a culture deck immediately. I would love that. That doesn't scare me at all. I've got automation stage, prompt stage. I know exactly how to do it. So that's great. Having clients wrap their minds around, having members wrap their mind around the production credits would be a dream come true. So dialing in on that back end offer, the value proposition for Venture Map operator and implementation support, that's huge. And a part of the education, the nurture, the pre-qualification for Venture Map Elite, like once they're in there through our ascension process, through that forever promise, is that education on how to leverage asynchronous cross-functional task execution that's aligned with your critical path. Because that's the agentic infrastructure we're building to move these companies closer to recursive self-improving smart businesses, self-optimizing enterprises. That's the big idea. So I'm incredibly impatient. A big part of me is so impatient that I want to get into this space. That's why we have Go High Level. It's free for every single Venture Map Elite member, which I've been woefully inept at promoting. But getting into the space where we're deploying content generation, content marketing machines, outbound prospecting machines, paid advertising machines, funnels, lead generators and nurture it, and optimization for sales process, agents and automations, and specialized offshore talent through all of those fields, not to mention through the employee experience for recruiting and employer branding. That is so exciting. And I keep feeling like Why is it so far away? We need to focus on that today. And I keep just going back to the basics and remembering to live my own core values, which is sharpen the axe. In this case, it's preparation. And we have to be thorough. We cannot, a half measure here, taken from one of my new friends for values. We can't take a half measure. So we're going to continue getting better on this strategic roadmap and operational planning capability set and tying that in to how we can actually help them do much more. That's been difficulty, right? It's all right, you got your growth plan, and then they leave. Wait a minute, what about the rest of this stuff? So having a tie-in at the end, talking about how we're actually going to execute things and how we can help them execute things, that's going to render a lot of insights. So this is going to be our approach for the summer. I've got a few big ideas on how to continue bringing value. I will say another cap to kind of place on this. One of the conversational boxes I opened was a friend and one of our members said, "Oh yeah, I'm so glad that it's been helpful. And my input, my feedback has been helpful and I hope it is meaningful for new members." I said, "It's going to be helpful for you too, because guess what happens in a couple of weeks? Another quarter. You got it. Quarter 3 is going to be here before we know it. And then quarter 4, and then there's annual planning for 2026, and it's Q1 and Q2, and it's going to keep on coming. To just at the growth plan level, unless you just forget the entire thing and you just give up on it, which is what we want to avoid. You're going to need another one. You're going to need an update growth plan. And that's what we're here for. We're here to make that process easy and quick and painless and fun and engaging. To that end, I'm in the final stages. I know we'll be ready in the next 2 weeks or so to make an announcement with time sufficient for pre-existing members to take advantage of it before Q3. But updated growth plans are going to be a part of the membership. It's a part of our forever promise. It's a part of the value proposition and our commitment to constantly bring more value through this engagement than the amount you've invested into it. We want to be positioned as an asset in your portfolio. We want this capability set to consistently perform. So helping you dial in on what needs to happen in Q3, helping you get clarity on that, that's part of the plan. So it's not just going to be one and done. You sign up once, you get a growth plan. Best of luck out there. Sign up for the community calls and watch a video training from time and time again. It's going to be just at the base level that we're anchored into. We're going to do this for you guys every quarter, every year. It makes all the sense in the world if you think about it from a productization standpoint. The AI COO is going to do that. He's always going to help you with quarterly planning. He's always going to help you, or she. They would always help you with that because it's part of their job. Vibe coding and I have become pretty well acquainted as a quote unquote non-technical founder. I have no background in coding and frankly, no interest in it. It's just not me. Within the Big 5 personality assessment, I scored, I don't want to misquote, the very highest sub attribute I have is aesthetics. On a scale of 100, I got the highest ranking in aesthetics, which I thought was really interesting, 95. That's a big departure from the coding world. So vibe coding has been just a tremendous boon in my life as of late. So I am working pretty consistently to bring to life a tool that actually looked a lot better on mobile, but fundamentally a tool that we can all have in our pockets. The VentureMap app is, in my view, something that everyone's already paying for. We've got 20 people in the community. Those are 20 people that are already paying for the subscription to the VentureMap app. And to see this data in a manner that's accessible at a moment's notice, I'm really excited about that. Because we don't always have our desktops open. We don't always have our laptops open. And Miro, frankly, sucks on the phone. It's not built for that. Where are you going to pull up your Gamma? What's in that message I sent you 3.5 months ago? No. You're going to open up the VentureMap app and everything's going to be there. So this is going to be the first thing that gets deployed. You're going to be able to see your planning horizon, the briefing video. You'll be able to see the deck. You'll come in here to see your 90-day rocks, 1-year plan, 3-year picture, and you can zoom in. Okay, cool. I've got 5 rocks. Here's my first rock. Cool. Here's my smart rock, right? We all know that. Okay, show me project plans. Here's the video overview of the project plan. And for those of you who are needing a little reminder, that is in the app. So boom, we're going to have the video there. You can skip through the deck, the whole project plan. It's going to be there. The WBS, it'll be, he's going to be there. The Gantt chart, it's going to be there. What's very interesting, and I'll leave it at this, the task list is going to be there. So I can't tell you how many times I've been on the side of the team side of the table, looking at a service provider, a vendor who's selling us on a scope of work. And ultimately it ends up being like, okay, here's what you guys have to do. We pay them to tell us what we have to do. We already spread them. We already are working long hours, late nights. And they come back and give us this super high level. Yeah, you guys have to improve your marketing. Tell me something I didn't know. God, I can tell you the time I've seen tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars go out the door for consultants and experts to tell us that we have to do all these different things. But they bring it to something that is like not even as detailed as this from a work breakdown structure standpoint. It's like ambiguous, how to actually do it, how to monitor it, how to operationalize it. The COO, the second in command, the operations leader, the solopreneur, it's like, we have to actually do it in the real world on a day-to-day basis. Like on a Tuesday afternoon, what the heck is my team going to be doing? What am I going to be executing on? So building for an agentic infrastructure where we are supporting with task execution, that's so big. It's so big. And not just any task, the tasks that are most relevant to the critical path for your company. That infrastructure is what we're building when I'm building. And we collectively are moving closer to that every single day, every week. So what informs what we do? Our quarterly rocks. What informs our quarterly rocks? Our annual plan. Like, what do we need to do this year? What informs that? A 3-year picture. What informs that? Our vision, our purpose, mission, values. And for those very few, in fact, I don't know if there's anyone in the community, I'm sad to say at this point, I'm looking for you. If you're out there, if you want to get into this, the dojo of strategic thought sparring at a black belt level, I would love to welcome you to get into the nexus, to have someone, it's maybe my colleagues out in California, maybe my colleagues out in South Africa, maybe I'll be surprised, maybe it's somebody else who wants to come in and work on cracking this for their business. This is really one of the biggest inputs into a growth plan, understanding the internal model, the external environment, the interface between the two, and the testing sequence, the experimentation sequence that we cast forward in time that directly informs our growth plan. It's the traditional strategy formulation or strategic planning process is informed by that. That's one of the inputs alongside of our mission and vision and purpose and values, et cetera, and what we see opportunistically in the world. So that is underway. Alpha testing will start occurring soon. I'd imagine by the end of this quarter, so the next month, we'll have the very first opportunity for new users to come in and to plug away at it. It's rough, but it's amazing how quickly it's already come together. And the first thing that I want to deploy is the planning horizon, since that's the big part that we're already bringing. We're already delivering that. I just want to deliver it even better. So that's what I was saying earlier about focusing in on this space, really getting this right, really getting this to the place where we've plugged some of the gaps. Like this has been a big gap previously. After the ops plan is delivered, even if it's iterated and improved to V2, what happens next? We got to talk about what we're doing, when we're doing it, and then it's literally how the heck that's actually going to be done. And that's at the task level. That's Kanban, backlog, establishing the backlogs, basically. Of course, that's a perfect enablement for our implementation support, which is why we give everybody or we give everybody production credits so we can help them with task execution. So it's just a beautiful tie-in to deliver value and build trust and demonstrate capabilities at no additional cost. And find partners who work well in that capacity and say, oh, great, there's a path for us to do this even more, to surge bandwidth in. And that's, of course, at the operator tier. And in time, that will be true in the platform as well, where we can actually, or we'll deploy agents and offshore talent, our narrow field specialists, to support task execution cross-functionally across your entire business. So having that infrastructure for tasks is everything. It's just so big. It's really what it's all about right now. So sends me sharing the founder's remarks for posterity's sake. I appreciate you listening, for joining. And again, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate you. And if you were wondering why game design, why gamification, why game principles, in the words of Will Wright, he says the difference between a movie and a game is one. He says that games and movies have a lot of similarities. They both tell a story, but the difference is one creates a sense of empathy with a story. If you're sitting in a movie theater and you're watching Tom Cruise fight bad guys and fly planes, there's a passive observance, there's an empathy established here. You're empathizing with the experience of the characters on the screen, the story being told. But if you play a game, it creates agency because you, in a sense, you become the character. The actions being taken in the story are your actions. Unlike the armbar approach of old school consultants saying, hey, bud, you just had a $10,000 line item this month for me to come to the table with a deck, some collateral, some recommendations, some production. You have to view it. If you don't view it, you're just flushing cash down the toilet, which is what happens a lot of the time, surprisingly, a lot of the time. Taking the other approach, taking the approach where, just like in games, the user wants to play. The user's engaged. So there's a behavioral dynamics to that. There's interface dynamics to that. There's a storytelling piece to it. There's a machine-computer interface dynamic to it. It's a fun challenge to get after. And I believe with all my heart and soul that we're on the trail for cracking that code. And we'll just take it one step at a time. So I've been able to cover some philosophical elements, some personal elements, some professional elements. I hope this is valuable as a build in public kind of video. And I look forward to seeing you all, hopefully, in the next group call. Until then, logging out.